Yansha. Good morning, everyone. Now, we have spent a lot of time over the last few days talking about the expansionary moment that we are in and the profound opportunity that AI will bring forward. Meeting the moment is key, and we really want to get in this panel from hype to how. That is the theme here. And I'm delighted to have three leaders with me today who are going to be talking us through what it really has meant for them, and they are really at the forefront of AI transformation. So it is my pleasure to welcome Boris Ewenstein. He is the CEO of OTTO. They are driving real results. You will hear about it. Hopefully many of you got to see it out there with the AI-powered shopping assistant, and also at the forefront of supercharged AI marketing. Welcome, Boris.
Thank you.
We have Adrian Gore here on my left, the CEO of Discovery, helping millions of people with personalized health advice with Vitality, powered by Google Gemini. And we have Hugh Brady, who is with us in the middle. He is the president of Imperial College London, providing amazing AI that can save time and save lives by identifying more cancer cases. So we'll hear about that, as well as many other applications of AI. Now, one of the things I strongly believe, and we've talked about this previously, is AI is really only as powerful as the problem at which it is pointed, and really bringing forward opportunities that matter to your organizations and businesses. And so I wanted to start by actually asking each of you to frame up what was the biggest challenge or opportunity that you saw that you could point the AI at? And maybe we'll start with you, Boris.
Sure, excellent. Good morning, everyone. Super nice to be here. Really great panel. And I have some personal connections to these folks as well, which is very exciting for me. But back to the question. So how do we define where to point AI at? So one framework that was tremendously helpful for us was, first of all, to differentiate between there's agentic working, how we use AI and agents to scale up and leverage the work that we do on the inside of the organization. And because we work in retail, we're OTTO, we're Germany's largest online retailer. Basically for us, agentic shopping is the outward customer-facing angle of it, and it's the second big dimension of where we drive an impact. So on agentic shopping, what's interesting for us is when we look at the German market retail, online and offline, is a market that has about 620 billion euros in GMV that's being transacted. But the online share is about 90 billion. So the online penetration rate is 14, 15%. If we look to the UK is about twice that. It's about 28%. And if we look to China is even more advanced. It's around the 40% mark. So if we think about the size of the market, there's still so much more that we can capture. Over 500 billion of offline GMV that's being transacted that's not currently happening online. Well, why not? What is it that the online experience is lacking that people go into shops for? And so here, people will say, oh, I don't want to shop online. I have a complicated purchase. I have a high involvement purchase. I need to get a television set, or even I'm thinking about setting up a home video situation with audio and video, or I need a washing machine and a washer dryer combination. It's too complicated. I need to go to the shop to get advice, to get expert advice, and to get a personal recommendation. So these things are beginning to sound a little bit like AI, right? So now the quest that we're on, so the thing that we're pointing this AI engine at is, can we take that kind of very personal, very rich in inspiration and expertise moment in the store and bring it online? And so that's what we're trying to do, building an agentic shopping experience that brings intelligence and personalization and the world knowledge, but also our own product knowledge, into the customer interaction. That's the goal here.
Excellent. Okay. Hugh, you're taking a slightly different take on this, I would say, but how are you thinking about the problems and opportunities that AI can help Imperial get after?
First, thank you for the invitation. For those of you who don't know Imperial, a relatively young institution, 100 years old. We describe ourselves as a century-old startup in terms of mentality. STEM-B, so STEM and business, and a real kind of problem-solving mentality. So original mission was to be useful, which at the time was to be useful to industry, but of course took on a broader dimension, whether that be healthcare, whether that be a wider society. No exaggeration to say, AI has become this terrific new collaborator that's integral to all of our operations. Our students, a lot of the agonizing worldwide has been around assessments and examinations. Less so for us because they tend to be laboratory assessments, vivas. But we've always prided ourselves that our students kind of top the employability charts. We're kind of saying, that's not good anymore. You need to be the very best physicist or mathematician or medic at your discipline and with AI. And that needs to happen from the graduating class this year and not next year.
Right.
So we're used to dealing in kind of cycles of 4 to 6 years, the length of a degree. We don't have that luxury anymore. It's turning out to be the most amazing accelerator for our research. You mentioned our collaboration, our partnership with Google in breast cancer. Similarly, AI-enabled stethoscopes all the way through to materials. So everything that we do has AI accelerating it. And if it isn't, there's a problem.
Yeah.
It's at the heart of probably 70% of our startups, from student startups, of which we've about 60 per year, to our deep tech faculty startups. And that's before you get to the business processes, because we are a complex organization. So, we are looking at, what does inclusive adoption look like? How do you ensure that there are students who aren't left behind because of lack of resources to give them access to tools? We have all of the cultural challenges that I know we're going to talk about probably later. We have some of our faculty and some of our students who are absolutely into this from the word go, see the possibilities, they grasp the opportunities, all the way through to those who are really worried. And then, of course, it's changed the way we're looking at cybersecurity. We all had the Anthropic week a few weeks ago. Like so many boards and management teams, we had emergency meetings, kind of think about, are we prepared, and how do we prepare for that reality? So really exciting on the one hand, and that's the overwhelming, I think, sense of optimism, but also some kind of hard realism to go with it in terms of running the organization.
Amazing. So deeply embedded in everything you're doing. And Adrian, how about you? We've talked about AI really being your business.
Yeah. We are a health and life insurer, globally, Vitality. Our business has been built. I like your purpose of be useful. Ours has been make people healthier, and the entire business is built around the idea of incentivizing people to make healthy choices, changing behavior, and pricing that into life and health insurance. The key issue for us, and I think the opportunity, Debbie, is the fact that we're completely aligned to our customers. If they're healthier, we're more profitable. So kind of you get this virtuous cycle. But the industry we're in actually is priced actuarially on kind of predetermined risk. The idea of actually making people healthier is only a new phenomenon, right? So these are, I think, very inefficient industries in a way. So our business has been about kind of using our data, which is now, I think, one of the biggest data sets in the world, 60 million life years, of understanding just how powerful that causal effect is on health. So we see, for example, from our data, if people go from being sedentary to being physically active, they bring their mortality rates down by 55% or thereabout. And amazingly, regardless of age, in fact, older age, sicker people, even more profound. We see the elasticity of kind of health span. You can double health span for older people if you actually do the right kind of behavior change. So the data is kind of unequivocal. And that was never really understood in the traditional actuarial models. The issue, though, is, and this is where the AI opportunity is, it's highly specific. So people with very similar risk factors may appear on the surface to need the same kind of behavior change, but it could be very different. A diabetic might require physical activity or disease management or medicine adherence. At the same time, and this is a crucial issue, we incentivize behavior change. The surplus coming out of the behavior change, we fund the incentives. So what AI allows us to do, and this is the work we're doing with Google, is to take that data set, all of those models, and use the reasoning in AI to make things completely and totally specific. How do we tell that individual what they need to do? How do we communicate it in the right way, the right context? How do we provide the right incentive so the actual incentive is equivalent to the health benefits we're going to see? So AI is allowing us to be completely specific. But I think that the power for us, and that's where we've got to, and it's, I think, incredibly exciting and simple for the customer, is kind of on the face of their mobile, personalized physical activity goals, step goals, seducing them into kind of habit laddering that changes behavior, sleep goals, disease management if needed, those kinds of things, very simply and very, very personal. The power of it to change behavior, and millions of people, because our industry covers billions of people, is real. So being very, very specific about how we use the data and then kind of scaling it across millions of people offers an opportunity to be very profound, I think, in how we impact society and how we change an industry that is massive, huge economic value, but relatively not inefficient, but kind of not using the latest causal understanding of the data.
Yeah.
So an exciting time for us.
Super exciting. I mean, on the theme of personalized and customized experiences, Boris, I'd love to come back to you and talk a little bit about how you actually went about building this customized AI kind of sales assistant.
Yeah. So first of all, what's so different, right? Everybody has kind of, let's say, a chatbot on their website, whether you're a customer service provider or you're an online store. And even with the search functionality. So everybody does chatty search, let's call it, right? But when it comes to depersonalize the device, how do you really do that? And what's the right modality? So yesterday we saw some examples of multimodal AI that was used to generate images, but also speech and voice. So the way that we try to tackle this problem is let's have a personalized consultation. So it's in voice mode, it speaks to you, but when we speak, expressed in tokens, speech is a kind of 10 token per second situation. When you look at a product listings page, when you're browsing your preferred retailer of choice, if you're from Germany, then maybe you take a look at OTTO. When you're browsing a product listings page, there's much more bandwidth, there's much more bit rate in the way that you consume this information. So the thing that we have to tackle is we need voice to give a personalized live dialogue that feels really like a consultation in a shop, but it's multimodal as well because it's responsive to you. It generates a product listings page, it generates a recommendation, it generates a product detail page, and it builds around you almost like generative UI as you browse and experience this. Now this, again, voice, okay, I've seen chatbots that can speak, so what's the big deal here? But what you're seeing at the moment is you're kind of seeing a user do a prompt, and then there's a kind of text-to-speech translation, and then there's some reasoning, and then there's in a sense, some synthesis back into text and back into speech. But that's not how this stuff works. So what you need is, you need a natural feeling conversation. So natural means latencies of between 300 and 700 milliseconds. So within that time frame, it has to understand what you're saying. It has to make sense of interruptions, because people in natural life talk over each other. It's so-called the duplex nature of conversations. Like a duplex apartment, there's kind of one conversation and another one. So people talk over each other, they interrupt each other. The computer has to reason, what's the signal that I now have to respond to? Is it the thing they said after the interruption, or should I hold in my memory the thing that preceded it? So that reasoning is going on. Then it plays back the right recommendation. It does so in natural sounding language. And it all has to do that kind of compute in milliseconds. And so there's all that tech that we have to put in place. And then we have to make sure, I mean, I think both Adrian and Hugh alluded to this, it only really works and is helpful if you've got a fundamentally personalized data set that sits underneath. So it's not just enough for us to use, let's say, a Gemini for enterprise and draw off of its world knowledge, let's say. It has to have access to the rich product knowledge and product graph that we have accumulated. So for example, what kind of products do customers buy together and what don't they buy together? So it has to go through the product graph that's specific to us, through the world knowledge, synthesize that, turn it into speech, and have that whole thing feel completely effortless. And so what we found is, so to cut to the chase, so we built all this stuff, we're evolving it, but what does it actually do in real life? So one thing we found is there's a lot more engagement in this kind of setup. So in a typical kind of text search situation, you have 2 turns of the conversation and the customer's at the PDP or they're gone. PDP means product detail page. In this sort of a setup, there's 11 turns of the conversation. And people are reporting, our customers are reporting, oh, this feels really natural. Now I'm in a dialogue with the machine. It's very personal to me. It feels really helpful. So we've measured that, and the data that comes back is, when we ask customers, does the AI in voice mode appear knowledgeable? And 74% of our customers say, yes, very strongly, I agree, or I agree. And that's compared to 51% if you just use normal kind of text type. So there's a huge uptick in how knowledgeable it seems. If you survey the same customer base, and this is data really, it's literally just in, right? I have my data cards in my back pocket just to make sure I get the numbers right. But it's 76% of customers who say the AI really understands me and my needs, over 55% who do it in just normal text type. This is a very important breakthrough for us in the retail space because we need the customer to feel attracted to our site specifically, as opposed to go shopping in some abstract way on some generic AI horizontal search platform or something like this. So that's why for us this kind of deep, rich experience is kind of what we're aiming for. And even if it just helps us get 1 percentage point off that total market size, it could effectively almost double our business. So that's why we're really after it.
That's amazing. And one more question for you. So that's what you're doing when you get someone to your site. But talk a little bit about how you're using AI for marketing to actually build your business and drive growth and find new customers.
So very briefly, look, the AI toolkit that we're using for marketing and advertising is so sophisticated. This is a problem that's well understood. It's well understood by the Google Ads team, for an example. And we're using new tools that help us to, bridge, for example, the way that we present our brand in public with performance marketing. So yesterday we spoke a lot about YouTube. YouTube is a very, very powerful surface for us because when we use YouTube, let's say masthead advertising, we can both present our brand and then feather in the products that people might see in the commercial campaigns or in the music videos or whatever that they're watching. And so we have the product right there, huge conversion rate upticks. We basically have huge click-through rates. There was one test we did had a click-through rate of factor X8. So that's huge, and then the costs are coming down. So of course we're leveraging on all those advertising innovations as we're building these other things with the conversational AI tools that are much less proven.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thanks for the great partnership. It's been awesome. Let's talk a little bit about, Adrian, how it's helping to drive your business. You are, as you said, building AI really into the core of the proposition, but how is it helping you actually find new customers and get out there and expand to the world?
Effectively, the proposition is so different, to a traditional insurance proposition where you're getting people to engage, get incentives, get discounts on healthy food, get devices for free, etc., etc. It's an entirely different proposition. But the scaling for us is that we work with partners around the world. So we're kind of working to put all this data into a box with the AI tools, working with Google, etc., and actually putting it into the businesses of John Hancock in the US, Ping An in China, AIA across Asia Pacific, our own business here in the UK, Vitality. So we're scaling on our own, but also through partners. And given their scale and their reach, again, the ability to really impact tens of millions of people, we have over 50 million people in some way we touch. Last year, we measured carefully in our sustainability reporting, so it's audited about 700 million healthy activities. So it is really, I'd argue that although it sounds almost an industry that's sleepy and it plays a fundamental role because of its scale of economics involved.
Yeah.
So if we can use that to really create a platform for change, it really is powerful. So we are scaling it kind of organically and through partners, but the ability now with the data and to put it into a kind of inner box, get it working well, so it appears on the face of the mobile wherever you go in a simple way is incredibly powerful. I mean, people don't engage typically with our industry. This turns it around and creates a very different proposition. So the scale of economics involved just is remarkable. And that really powers incentives and powers a proposition that really grows and changes.
And how has it come to life in the organization? How are people actually using the tools themselves?
Well, I think the difference here is AI and all of its potential, all the dilemmas and debates happen across the organization. That's a given. But the fact that it's core to the actual business model, creates a very different dynamic. People are kind of aligned behind it, but all the same debates about complexity, hallucinations, all the intimacy issues, etc., all exist. But I would argue that if you can use AI in the core purpose of the organization, in the fundamental competitive issue, then I think you're going to use it in a very different way. I think the other debates about efficiencies they're there and they're existential and they kind of commoditized and how will you do them. But I think the real differentiation is can you build that power into the core proposition.
Interesting. Hugh, I'd love to bring you in on this because we were talking about culture and organizational change. Tell me a little bit about how AI is seen within the organization.
I think the challenge is it's not homogeneous, it's very heterogeneous. And you have the early and enthusiastic adopters, particularly the academic staff, the researchers. But then when you get into more professional services, kind of the business side of the organization, I'd say, perhaps more insecurity and at the other extreme, very concerned and feeling they might get left behind. But I think there's nothing like examples to bring home the benefits and the opportunities and there actually, if I go back to, because these stories do inspire all of those staff. So we have two great, I'm a physician scientist, so it's a clear conflict of interest. So I'll give you two medical examples that really have been inspiring for our entire community. So one was our partnership with Google around breast cancer detection. So radiologists working with AI, detecting more cancers, but really importantly, less false positive, less false negatives, faster, and more efficient and more
Amazing.
affordable, and ultimately saving lives. That's one. Two is, as a medical student, don't want to even talk about myself. My son graduated from medical school about 5 years ago. He, like me, probably spent weeks or months learning how to use a stethoscope, learning how to do and read ECGs. A great example, we have an AI-enabled stethoscope that in 15 seconds in a GP surgery, and this is done in the wild, done 100 GP surgeries, 15 seconds, it will tell you how the heart is pumping, ejection fraction, if you have a cardiac arrhythmia, such as atrial fibrillation, and if you have a valve problem. 15 seconds. And more importantly, or as importantly, leading to earlier treatment, earlier hospitalization, shorter hospitalization, and in fact, reduced total number. So this is an example of, I suppose, the technology concretely addressing one of the biggest challenges facing humanity is how do we pay for the healthcare for an expanding and aging population?
Yeah.
I think there's the challenge for us all to try and bring everybody with us and to recognize that there are different levels of comfort and enthusiasm within organizations, but stories really count and they
Absolutely.
really inspire.
Yeah, definitely. And tell me, I know there's something called an AI co-scientist. What is that, and how does that work alongside people?
I just wish that there was an AI co-scientist when I was a practicing scientist. Because, what is the traditional life of a scientist? It is spending, 6 to 8 weeks preparing for that experiment, and the experiment might be the wrong one in the first place. But, so what it does, I suppose, is it condenses the time that you need to spend on reviewing the literature. You can talk through with it various hypotheses, so you can come up with the right one. And we had it, I suppose, an example working with Google DeepMind. Some of you might have seen an amazing paper in Cell, where we had researchers looking at molecular mechanisms of antimicrobial resistance. 7 years to deliver absolutely landmark paper in Nature. On the eve of the publication, worked with Google DeepMind and said, okay, if you had this information, what would you predict are the right answers to this question? And it spat it out in about a weekend.
Wow.
So much so that our colleagues said they must have had access to our lab books. They just couldn't have done this. So I think that's what's at play, is that prep time should be condensed, and then allowing scientists to maybe debate the really important questions for longer.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, one I'm going to do a speed round with all of you. One of the frameworks that we use at Google is this idea of testing, learning, and then scaling. This idea of once you've decided, I want to take on this project, sort of scientific method-like, this is the opportunity that I want to go after. We're going to design some tests, and we're going to actually have some clear KPIs. We're going to judge whether or not it's working. That's how we learn. And then once we find something that's working, we're actually going to scale it in our organization. If you were to think about where your organizations are around the testing, the learning, and the scaling as it relates to AI deployment within your organizations, would you say you're in testing, learning, or a scaling mode at this point? And I'll start with you, Boris.
Definitely testing, let's be honest, right? So this is, for us, it's really the beta phase. We're putting product out there, we're getting customer feedback. We're exposing this to 100% of our traffic. And the way that the team scaled this up, it kind of surprised me. It was really nice. So first, I did a conference of this sort in March, and we were sat there, and I said, it's 10% of our traffic. We get about 1 billion, just over 1 billion site visits per year. So, it's on 10% of the traffic. That's good. 100 million people will be exposed to it over the course of the year. And then it was 50% of the traffic within a matter of weeks. And when I traveled up to London, I double checked with the team because are we really public to everybody with this now? Is it really production ready? It's in testing phase. We're putting it out in front of customers quickly. We're getting real live signal from the customer. So we're seeing, conversion rates are twice that of the normal conversion rate. So if a customer goes through this path, they're twice as likely to buy something as a result of the conversation than just everywhere else on the platform. And we're seeing things like 37% higher average order value when people go through this consultation.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so the uptrading, all those little signals are super important for us. So all of this is to say, it's still very much in the test phase, but it's a very empirical, very rigorous, put it out there in front of the customer as fast as you can type of process to get scaled up.
Well, I would say that story sounds like you've tested something, you're actually learning because you have some clear learnings, and you're actually scaling it to 1 billion site visits. That's pretty impressive. But it sounds like more still to do across the organization.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, amazing. Hugh, how about you? Test, learn, scale.
I'd say testing and learning at scale.
Okay, great. Rephrase the question.
Because there is no choice. I mean, I mentioned, like, so our students graduating this year aren't not just fantastic mathematicians or physicists, but also they need to be expert at AI if they're going to get that interview and get that job. Our researchers know that, you know, if they're not using and deploying AI to its full potential, they're getting left behind.
Yeah.
All the way through to, you know, just the business. We're deploying an ERP this year, a new virtual learning environment for our students. You know, when we planned it, AI was probably not even a practical reality, and now we're having to make sure that it is mainstreamed into the business.
Amazing.
Else we lose out.
And how are you actually making sure your graduates are AI ready?
So we know and we check that. So all of our departments have always, I mean, they've always evolved. I mean, academics always evolve. They always, you know, certainly at Imperial embrace new technologies. What I think as a management team we're doing is making sure that there is nobody who's falling behind or falling between the cracks. So I think that's where the management team can kind of. So we have formed. You mentioned in private kind of a tiger team.
Yeah.
We don't call it that. We call it, you know, just a subcommittee. And I think tiger team is a much sexier kind of version of it.
Feel free to use it. Yes.
But,
not TM.
But literally, we have a subcommittee or a tiger team of our management team that is looking across the piece, you know, to make sure that there aren't parts of the organisation, be they academic or the business, that are missing a trick. And so you're trying to complement what is always going to happen from bottom up, and you don't want to stifle that, but you want to absolutely make sure nobody is left behind or no part of the business is left behind.
Interesting. Okay. And Adrian, how about you? Test, learn, scale.
I think in this, with AI, it's a virtuous cycle.
Okay.
I don't think you can get caught in. There are a lot of people who just want to stay in the testing phase.
Yes.
Paralyzed in that phase, and others who are a bit, you know, trigger happy and want to just execute. We're scaling quickly, but we're trying to bring down error rates very quickly. We're trying to work on issues that we test very, very carefully. So we are in the scaling execution phase. We're rolling it out here in the UK to 2 million people. We're doing it in other markets as well. So we are scaling quickly, but we are continuously testing. We're dealing with intimate, complex stuff, health advice, hallucinations, error rates. I don't believe you can ever be in any discrete. I think you've got to spin that wheel continuously and improve. And I think you've got to be very, very careful with how you do it. And I think all of it must be done with consent, with clarity, with the right set of principles and ethics, etc. But I think you can get caught only in the testing, and you never actually get moving. You've got to actually get the organization behind it and actually deliver and demonstrate effect. So we're in, I hope I don't sound patronizing, we're kind of spinning through that
it's great.
wheel all the time.
Scientific method, that's the way. Final word of advice for the leaders in this room about helping their organizations move forward in this world of AI. Should we go in reverse order? Are you ready, Adrian, or is that too fast?
No.
Okay.
I mean, off the cuff, I would say if it's core to the business model, I think it does better. If it's core to a human outcome, I think it's more inspiring for your people. If it's about efficiencies, I think it's threatening to people, and you'll find barriers throughout the organization. I think the more you can align it to better outcomes for the people that you serve and more competitiveness, I think you're going to get results.
I love that, yes. Hugh, that speaks to your storytelling.
Yeah, I'd say the culture is as important as the technology.
Yep, absolutely. And how about you, Boris?
So my advice, I mean, I'm not really in a position to give advice in the sense that I'm just learning, trying to make sense of this as much as anybody else in the auditorium, right? But the thing that I'm thinking about a lot is there's AI that helps you to train your cognitive muscle, and there's AI that makes your cognitive muscle really lazy, okay? So resist the impulse when someone says, oh, just generate, you know, a summary of the document, or just have like AI tell you the 3 things to bring up in the meeting or whatever. No, like be careful. There are ways for this to really empower your mind. And for example, if you think about setting up a personal agent, you're like, whoa, what should the markdown file say? And what's my rubric? And what should I define? How should I think about asking it to do certain things? Those are all like flexing in the gym, working out on your mind, right? And I think being able to discern, is this making me lazy and think less? Or is this making me leverage whatever mental capacity I have? Discerning that is just really, really important.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, panel, to kick us off for the day. Please join me in thanking the panel. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.